In today's video, I will be giving you guys some key tips and showing you how I build my maps so that your maps can go from this to this. In my recent few uploads, you guys have been leaving lots of good recommendations and ideas for my minigames, so you can expect more videos of those soon. Today we are going to be giving Happy's minigames a little revamp because the map is decent, but I could definitely do better. I'm also thinking about changing the name, so if you have any good name ideas, let me know in the comments. After we make the maps, I'll also need to fix the lighting because apparently you guys don't like it. I guess I can see where you're coming from on that one. After we are done making the map, I'll be making some changes to the gameplay with your feedback. Alright, so we're here in Roblox Studio, and let's start off with the base part. The typical size for a simulator map is 200 to 300 studs on each side, if that's what you're planning on making. But in this video, I'm just making a smaller map because it's just a lobby. I'm already using tip number 1, which is to import a Roblox character before you begin building anything, so that you can ensure that your builds are to the correct scale. My second tip is one that I don't see used enough in games. I believe that Roblox maps should include different levels of height that the player can move on. An example of this is how the shop and eggs in Pet Simulator X are all at a different height than the main gameplay. In this map, I'm adding stairs up to a higher level that the player can access. Up here, I plan to add the game passes and the leaderboards. Right on to tip number 3, I strongly recommend that you use textures on the ground parts of your map. It's not too hard to find a large texture pack from the toolbox like this one here. It is important that you keep the transparency high so that it is just a faint difference from the main color, unless you're going for a more realistic map with bricks or wood. In that case, you would want to have the texture fully visible. Next up, you need to plan where you want your points of interest. A point of interest is a spot where the player can do something, whether it's exploring the map or buying upgrades. When building your map, make sure to scatter points of interest around your map so that the player has a reason to move away from where they spawn. A few examples of points of interest in most simulators are leaderboards, shops, eggs, and sometimes a king of the hill. By incorporating these points of interest around your map, the players are more likely to stay in your game for a longer period of time. Next, I want to add a portal between the leaderboards. To make this portal, I'm going to open this free software called Blender. I recommend using Blender to make custom models to add to your game. There are many more functions inside of Blender that give you the ability to make pretty much anything you can think of. Next, I'm adding this red carpet to direct the players towards the portal and leaderboards. I'm planning on having this spawn in the center, so we will have the carpet lead all the way down to there. In my last map, I used this waterfall that I really liked, but I want a more cartoony style for the water. I don't exactly recommend using the toolbox, but if there is anything you need, there is likely something for you in the toolbox. Alright, I've been messing around for a few minutes, and I've got this nice little setup for the waterfall. Next, I'm going to extend the border around the map. For your borders of the map, make sure that you are not copy and pasting. It's okay to use the same mesh for the whole border, but make sure to give them all different rotations and scales like I'm doing. By changing the size and rotation for each part, the border doesn't look repetitive. Okay, so I'm back in Blender, and I've been working on this tree model that I'm pretty happy with. Let's go ahead and import it into Roblox Studio. When I place in my trees, I just mess around and try to find spots that feel natural and don't get in the way of where the player may be going. Okay, so it's been like 10 minutes since my last update, and I've added these giant trees around the map to give off the vibe that you're kind of in the middle of a forest. I also added in a second layer of the border pieces for some extra depth in the map. Now I'm working on the points of interest for the grass area. I'm thinking of having everything branch from the circle, which will likely be where the player spawns. I also feel like it would look better if I just had one large leaderboard for the total wins, so I moved it over to the grass side. I feel like the trees do a good job of making the leaderboard really feel like a part of the map. Okay, so the next update, I added a wall around the upper level and then added the border parts around it so that the map all feels like one piece. Here you can see what the map looks like so far. It's looking nice and clean, but there are definitely lots of open spaces to fill up with more points of interest since the player doesn't really have anything to do right now. After adding in a few extra details, it is time to make the upgrade shop. When making your buildings, make sure to stay consistent with the style of your map. If a building is too detailed, it'll make the rest of your map look under detailed. And if the building isn't detailed enough, it will stick out like a sore thumb and look like you rushed it. After importing the shop, I decided that I wanted to move the trail passes to the elevated section. I then added a few extra details around the shop. It's important to add extra details around the building to help blend it with the rest of the map. For example, I added rocks around the bottom of mine. After messing around for a bit, I decided that I would have a glowing pad that the player would stand on to open the shop. I then added in a path to connect the shop with the spawn. While working on the paths, I might as well add one leading to the leaderboard as well. Now it's time to switch back to the upper section of the map and add in some variations so that it's not just a flat wall. To give the wall some extra depth, I'm adding in these pillars to make the wall seem more fortified. After adding extra details, I felt like the map was at a good checkpoint, so I posted a picture of it on RoBuilder's Discord server, and after a few minutes, I had 2 people offering to pay me to build for them. After you improve your building skills, you can make some nice Robux from commissions. Next, I have to figure out the points of interest for the upper level. To fill up some of the extra space, I'm adding another level that the player can travel on. On the left side, I'm going to have the trail game passes, and on the right side, I plan on adding a pad where you can purchase the 2x wing game pass. For the game pass, I'm going into Blender yet again to make a crown mesh that will float above the pad. After this, I added in some extra details to the rest of the map, and it's ready to be copied and pasted into the actual game. I know the lighting is terrible, so I tried to fix it, but I'm just terrible at lighting. Eventually, I gave up and made this script to completely ruin the game. Feel free to copy the script into your own game and see what it does. Next, it's time to do the rest of the items on my checklist. After making the lighting worse, I began working on the map for the lava minigame. I wanted to use a lot of the same parts to keep the theme the same, but I changed up the layout and the actual parkour. My idea for the map is that you start on a platform at the bottom of the opposite side of the portal. The portal is the end goal, for when you reach it, you escape the rising lava. In my original map, I had the parkour fit in with the map, but I received complaints that it was hard to tell where you were supposed to go. So I'm making the obby bright colors this time. I used the same trees as the map I made earlier, but I changed the color to an orange color. For the sides, I added random rocks and placed the trees where it felt right. I then added it into the actual game. Next, I had to modify some of the scripts to make the new game and the 2x wing game pass work. I know the lighting is still terrible, but I promise I'll fix it after the video because it's going to take me ages to figure out. The obby isn't supposed to be difficult, but I made sure to incorporate a few different types of challenges. The obby includes moving parts, kill parts, and spinning kill parts. For the 2x game pass, I made the simple icon with a crown and the 2x text. I then used the same crown to make some new UI that shows the amount of wins that you have. Last thing I added in was a spectate feature so that you can watch your friends when you die. You open it by walking close to the portal and then close it by pressing the X. Of course, there were a lot of other small changes I made in the game, but that about wraps it up for this session. I hope you learned something new about making maps, but one last tip I would give is to try and find your own building style, because if you just try to copy someone else, you will never do better than the original. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.